And welcome back to another edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, joined by a triumphantly returning father in the form of Justin Lowery. Justin, first off, congratulations. I saw little Grayson earlier on the webcam. How does it feel to be a dad for the first time?
Pretty much the same, except less sleep.
Hopefully you will stay awake for the duration of the next 30 or so minutes here on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. Glad to have you back. We had Rennie Detour fill in a couple weeks ago on the heels of Royal Rumble, and then last week I flew at it solo. It's hard to believe that we're already approaching another pay-per-view. Before we get into the specifics of Elimination Chamber and of Raw and SmackDown, and of course talk about the shirt that you're donning, All Elite Wrestling as well, it just feels like this is a very rushed pay-per-view that is going to fall flat just because there's not enough anticipation. I don't get the reason why they need two pay-per-views between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania.
I totally agree. I mean, sometimes one feels a bit much. I mean, you watch. I really enjoy the Rumble, and as soon as the Rumble's over, I'm like ready for WrestleMania. You know, the matches kind of set up the Mania matches, and they're already promoting WrestleMania, and the matches too, especially the key women's one. So it's like a pit stop. Like there's nothing special is going to happen here at Elimination Chamber. Nothing. Like I don't expect really any titles to change hands. Nothing flashy is going to happen. It's this place holding, until we get another 6-7 weeks ahead when they really bust into the Mania season.
So before we even get into this pay-per-view, which is this Sunday already, what in the world are they going to say for the Fastlane pay-per-view, which is in, I believe, early March?
Good question. Probably repetitive matches. What's interesting to me would be like the WWE title match. Like, okay, it's being defended in Elimination Chamber. That's easy. What are you going to do for Fastlane? Are you going to have somebody get a shot at Bryan one-on-one, like a one pay-per-view thing? Or is it going to be like a four-way dance, or they're going to jumble it again for no reason?
Or will that main event be to determine the number one contender for the WWE Championship on SmackDown? Daniel Bryan doesn't even necessarily compete.
I guess you could, but then you don't have your two major titles not being defended on the show. That's pretty bad in my opinion.
It is. It absolutely is. That being said, it's sort of now in 2019, like the women's championships are just as significant in some regard as the men's championships, because Brock Lesnar's never around, and even though Daniel Bryan is great, you just never feel like that title held as much significance as what it has in years past. Speaking about the women, you mentioned they're already going forward with WrestleMania and what they're planning to do. That's, I think, probably the biggest takeaway from this week was the Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Vince McMahon dynamic. I personally hated it, even though I sort of expected it would end up like this. Just to fill everyone in if they didn't see, Becky throughout Raw, it was kind of teased that she was going to need to apologize to Stephanie, to Triple H. All she had to do was apologize. The match was back on. Her suspension would have been lifted, which the whole thing was kind of dumb in the first place, that she wouldn't see the doctor, so on and so forth. But at least you're playing up the character that she's this rebel, doesn't want to listen to authority. She gives in. She apologizes, although not, on her knees or anything like that. And then Vince comes out and says, oh, that's not good enough. First off, you sort of hurt the mystique of Becky Lynch a little bit by having her do that. And then it just seems like they do this when they're trying to get a new face over. They always have to involve the authority and always have to put... It's the exact same storyline we've seen, a dozen times over the past 20 years?
Oh, I think more than a dozen. I think they do it at least once a year. Here's my thing. I hate the fact that Ronda and Becky isn't going to be one-on-one. I don't mind the storyline. I'm not a Charlotte hater. I mean, she's very good. I just don't think she needs to be in this match. In a way, I feel like they're putting her in this match just because Vince can't stand for the fact that those two would main event WrestleMania without Charlotte being in the picture. He has to have Charlotte in the picture because like we've talked about here, she's the female Roman Reigns.
Do you think all along it was Charlotte versus Ronda was supposed to be this main event, and they sort of had to put Becky in because of the reaction?
I think they didn't see Becky, coming like this. There's no way. I think originally Becky was going to face Ronda at Survivor Series, and that was going to be done. And then Charlotte would take over, and those two would main event WrestleMania.
Right.
And then Becky kind of ran with it. The crowd got super behind her, and which completely makes sense to me and you. But it shows you how Vince is clueless. Like, they have no idea, like, the crowd's going to react the way they did. Like, I think most people, wrestling fans, would tell you, oh, that was going to happen. But Vince seems to be flabbergasted why the crowd would chant, for Becky over Charlotte, when clearly everybody can relate to why Becky would feel that way.
Remember, they were trying to make Becky the heel and Charlotte the face, and it didn't really work. So at least they have them in the correct roles now.
Right. And Charlotte, her promo on SmackDown, I thought was excellent. A+ for me. I thought she's perfect in the role she's in. Becky is basically the female Steve Austin now. You got the Authority, as you said, basically doing, Becky what they did to Austin years ago. And, I guess that's good for Becky. If they're putting her in that position, I think she's going to thrive. And now there's rumors that they want to have Stephanie versus Becky at SummerSlam. And it's not that I really care to see that, but in their eyes, that's now kind of saying that, okay, we do see she is a star.
That's what I hate, that they feel like to put these people over at the highest level, it has to involve Triple H or Stephanie or Vince. They did this with Daniel Bryan. Oh, he's not a big enough star. We gotta help him a little bit more. And I understand with very casual fans, maybe that makes sense. But let me ask you this, Justin. Doesn't putting Charlotte in this match, and especially using the Authority to do it, doesn't that sort of overall hurt the depth of the WrestleMania card? Because now Charlotte, we're looking at the SmackDown Women's Championship saying that's going to be irrelevant by WrestleMania time.
Isn't it already? Like, what has Asuka done the last couple of weeks?
Because I don't think they have a plan now that they have both Becky and Charlotte on Raw. Why are they both going for the Raw title? Doesn't make sense. It makes them indicate that they don't care at all about the SmackDown title at this point.
Well, yeah, and about the brand splits. What was Vince's really justification putting Charlotte in the match? Blah, 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 blah. But she didn't win the Rumble. She's not on Raw. So, like, shouldn't you have to pick someone from the Raw side? And it also goes back to, like, months ago when they came out, when the ratings, you guys are now the Authority. We're going to be doing less of this, less of that.
That's exactly what I was thinking of when Vince made that announcement.
That's on this show back then that nothing was going to change. And as we sit here today, nothing has changed. But they went right back to it.
There's a difference of nothing changing in, like, behind the scenes, but I thought they'd at least change it in character. You know what I mean? Like, on TV.
Maybe, okay, they took away the GMs, and they kind of...
But not really. They just made the GMs the McMahons.
Right. And they were supposed to be, we're going to listen to you. We're going to be fair. Blah, blah, blah. Well, no. Clearly, they went back to the heel Authority figure, suspending, it's the same storyline over and over again. It doesn't really excite me.
Here's my thing. Is there anyone that you know that wouldn't have been sold on Becky versus Ronda one-on-one? Was that not enough?
It was enough. 100% enough.
Because then I think you devalue SmackDown by, Charlotte, Asuka, round 2. That's a big match as well if they would have gone that direction. You could have had both.
They could have built up, but Vince, once again, that's going to be, as we're talking about, this match is the main event at WrestleMania. And Vince, there's no way he can have those two main event. He wants to have Charlotte in that match. Because from here on out, hey, what match was the first ever women's match, the main event of WrestleMania? He wants Charlotte to be in that conversation. He doesn't want her excluded from there. She's very deserving. It's not like Charlotte's not deserving. It's just that the way the storyline played out, she didn't need to be in the match. It's not necessary. And you're hurting, like you said, the depth of your card down the line.
One last thing on this topic, because that was what concluded Raw. And then, of course, Becky wasn't on SmackDown, but as you saw from the picture I just showed, Charlotte was. She was gloating about that, to your point. What do they do to get Becky back on? I hate when they do something, they fire someone, they suspend someone, and then like a week later, is it going to lead to maybe Becky getting involved either this weekend or maybe having a match at Fastlane to get back in the WrestleMania card? Because I don't really see a clear workaround.
It's not like she's been kicked out of the match. She's suspended. So technically, she shouldn't be on TV now until after WrestleMania, if we're going by. So how is she going to get back on? If you notice, the only one who wasn't on Raw for that was Shane. Is Shane then going to be the good McMahon again? Or is she going to go to the board of directors and they're going to pass a vote? We've seen that used before. I really don't know how. Honestly, I don't know how.
I have a feeling somehow she beats Charlotte at the next pay-per-view Fastlane.
What's the justification, though, of her then getting non-suspended? Well, how is that going to come to pass?
It seems really unnecessary. And Runny said, like, when you have good matches at WrestleMania or at any pay-per-view, and you have the storylines already in place, you don't need to do too much. You don't need to go over the top with stipulations and things like that. I think this is just unnecessarily complicated for what was a already made main event. The night after Royal Rumble, everyone has already sold Ronda against Becky.
They were sold for that before the Royal Rumble. I mean, that's what people have been anxiously awaiting.
Since it got torn away from us before Survivor Series.
Right. And the only other thing I thought about, Charlotte's going to be the one now heavily booed, where Ronda was getting a lot of boos, and I don't think they wanted that. So at least in the triple threat match, Charlotte's going to be the one getting booed, so it takes some heat off of Ronda, which I think they want, because it was a one-on-one match.
But theoretically, if Ronda wins, what's fans' reaction going to be?
Oh, they'll boo like hell. I mean, Becky, I think, has to win. Even the way they're setting up the storyline, she has to come out of it on top, and I think she will. But this way, Ronda can lose the belt without actually being pinned.
Right. I understand that. I understand that aspect of it.
I really hope Becky pins Ronda. That's what needs to happen, especially if you believe that after WrestleMania, Ronda's going to be kind of finishing up because she wants to start a family, if that report's true.
Right. That was the headliner this week, I think. But there was something else on Raw that, if you don't watch all 3 hours, and I know, you in particular, you said a lot of times, I don't watch 3 hours. I just can't stand that much, and especially when it's bad. If you hung around past the 10 o'clock hour and watched for a solid 25 minutes the Tag Team Championship match, terrific. And it was something that I think, Justin, we would agree that this is what tag teams are capable of doing in WWE if they get that opportunity in the ring. And if there's any emphasis put on that division whatsoever, this is what these teams can do. And I say teams, Bobby Roode and Chad Gable are sort of becoming a team, but they were just two guys thrown together. This was one of the best tag team matches we've seen from a while. And it's also, in my estimation, maybe the best main roster revival match. They win the championships. Will it mean anything? Time will tell. But if you want to step in the right direction, I think this was possibly that step.
Right. And again, I think I texted you this maybe last week. This is the, all elite wrestling effect. Vince still doesn't care about tag team wrestling. But when that promotion got started and they were going to emphasize the tag team division, and the revival kind of started, apparently requesting their release. They wanted out because they were sick of the way the tag team division was being handled. If there is no all elite wrestling, Vince probably like, okay, yeah, here you go, here's your release. I don't care, because he didn't really care about the revival. But because there's now competition, he's like, I don't want anyone going over there. So what does he do? He starts featuring more, and then he gives them the title, and he's promising these guys the opportunity. Now we're going to focus more on this. There's reports out that the Usos contract's up soon. They haven't re-signed yet. They're keeping their options open. Vince is going hard after them.
Seems like a lot of guys. Randy Orton, that's same thing. Now I don't ever see Randy Orton leaving. But that being said, if you're becoming a free agent, that's a bargaining chip right there.
Well, if anything, it's leverage. Even if you don't plan on going, you're going to get a better contract. And we were seeing reports already that Vince is trying to sign everybody long-term deals with more money. So that's why this is so good for the wrestlers. Even if you don't want to go, you're going to get more money just because there's another promotion out there.
How long do they sustain this with the revival before? I mean, do you think after WrestleMania we're going to see maybe Vince McMahon kind of go a little bit into the background with the XFL starting, and maybe Triple H and Stephanie do have more interest in a team like the Revival?
I I really hope, because honestly, I think Vince is hurting the company right now. He's done a lot of good for wrestling, but right now he needs to step aside. He's hurting the product because he's not in touch anymore. He doesn't understand the landscape anymore. Triple H does.
You watch NXT or NXT UK or 205 Live. He's had his fingerprints all over him.
What's going on, and he needs to take over. Hopefully, yeah. You said once XFL starts, Vince is, he's over there. But I can see that guy. He's a control freak. He's gonna want his hands in everything.
And he doesn't really sleep, I'm to understand. So he has full 24-hour days to focus on both.
He would slow down, but the guy just keeps on going.
One other thing on Raw that really annoyed me is we mentioned this is a stopgap type pay-per-view, especially on the Raw side, right? I mean, there's really nothing significant on the Raw side for this pay-per-view, is there?
Does anyone really think Ruby Riott has a chance in hell?
You are reading my mind, Justin. That is, I guess, the big Raw match on Elimination Chamber. It's Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross. So, first off, I hate the fact that Ruby Riott is in this match without the fans really knowing why. The only explanation is Ronda beat up the other two Riott Squad members in like 10 seconds, but Ruby ran away. That's somehow enough for her to get this match, and for fans to care? I don't understand that. Like, did she hasn't, gotten the better of Ronda, right?
No.
So, why is Ruby in this match? She's obviously going to lose. Now, they can have a good match. Maybe that'll help Ruby long term. But she's on Raw this week beating Nikki Cross. That was an okay match. That being said, Ruby is not championship contender based on how she's been presented over the past couple months. And Nikki Cross has now switched twice from face to heel, back to face. Fans aren't going to care if you do that. As soon as you introduce a person, you go back and forth.
Again, they bring people up from NXT, and it was reported they had no plan for these guys. Vince just said, put them on TV. That's all that matters. No, Vince, Vince has no idea. He has no clue. They have no other competitors really right now until, Mania. That's what they're going with. And they're already hyping the match. So nobody in their right mind actually believes Ronda's going to lose from here until WrestleMania.
Do you remember the, either the Christmas or the New Year's episode of Raw? Natalya and Ronda had an awesome match. It was great. There was sort of a storyline, even though they didn't turn Natalya heel. Why not do something like that at this pay-per-view where they have a match to determine who is the number one contender? Natalya wins it, and then the friends are going to go at it, and then you're wondering, well, will Natalya turn heel? That would make more sense, right?
It would, but Natalya and I guess Dana Brooke are going to have a little mini feud.
That sounds awful.
Well, of course, but
wait, is Dana Brooke a heel again? Because she was face for a couple shows too.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, who knows? Who cares?
SmackDown gave us something to care about, and that was a person who had been an afterthought in recent weeks, Kofi Kingston. He gets inserted into a gauntlet match replacing Mustafa Ali, which, by the way, I've been talking about Mustafa every week. He's incredible. This is a break. This is a tough break for him that honestly could cost him dearly, just how this company works. He might never recover. He was going to be in the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship, injured, replaced. I don't know how serious the injury is. It doesn't seem like it's super long-term. Nonetheless, Kofi takes a spot in the Chamber, I believe, in the Gauntlet match for sure, and Kofi steals the show. He does basically a Seth Rollins performance in a Gauntlet match, and I will always insist that was the spark that brought Seth Rollins back to the main event. That's why Seth Rollins is main eventing WrestleMania this year, is because it all started with that Gauntlet performance on Raw. Kofi's not going to be main eventing WrestleMania anytime soon, I don't think. But it was great to see, and by the end, the fans were so into his performance that this maybe will give this guy a bit of a push if they decide to maybe give him a bit of a singles run.
Yeah, just to start with Ali, apparently he's not like one serious injury. It was multiple little injuries, and they just decided to pull him because he's just banged up. And apparently what Kofi did in the match was exactly what Ali was supposed to do. They didn't change the script of the match. Kofi just played Ali's part. So it really sucks for Ali because he was going to get that monster push in that match.
And truthfully, I love Ali, but I feel like it worked better for Kofi.
Well, Kofi...
You know what I mean?
at this point in his career is probably more deserving. He's been with the company so long. Randy Orton basically buried his only main event level push way back when, and the New Day, I would say, is a type of a main event level with their popularity. They might not get main event type spots on the card, but they are a top draw in the company. It's good. I think every wrestling fan knows Kofi had that in him. I don't think anyone says Kofi's a bad wrestler or he's not entertaining in the ring. He just finally got to showcase it. There's a lot of guys that can do that are on the roster that don't get to showcase it. He got to showcase it. Good for him. Does it lead to anything? I'm going to say not.
I could see a scenario, and I don't want to give away our predictions yet, but I could see it being Kofi maybe the last person who gets eliminated inside the chamber. I could see that. It comes down.
But then what comes from that? Nothing. Now, does he get the one-off match with Bryan at Fastlane? Do they go, hey, we'll throw him in? That should be a fun match, and then they'll go back.
I would dig that, honestly, but it also sucks because he's not going to win it.
Right, exactly. But I think that's what they view him as. Vince isn't going to change his mind and be like, oh, we really need to push this guy, as a single star now.
So one other thing that I did not think I would really be interested in, but has slowly won me over, is Shane McMahon and The Miz as the tag team champions, and they had a nice little exchange with the Usos. It's just a matter of time until this blows up, but for the time being, it's working for me. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, I was not in any way expecting them to win the tag team championships. I thought that the blow up between them would start at Royal Rumble, lead to a WrestleMania match. I think they're dragging that out a little bit longer. It might start this weekend. It might start maybe down the road, but it's one of those things where you automatically assume it's not going to work because you know what the ultimate end result is. But do you remember Randy Orton and the Wyatt family? That worked for a while too, and they kind of short-circuited it. We knew it was going to blow up eventually. These short-term alliances where they're doomed to fail, sometimes they just don't work. I think Shane and The Miz are working well together and being entertaining. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It doesn't thrill me as much as it thrills you. It's okay. I mean, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I really don't like Shane as an active wrestler. I don't know why. It's just, I think the McMahon thing, which he goes out and, busts his ass. I mean, he pulls off moves that a lot of guys can't, even though his punches are one of the worst. Yes, Fastlane, and then it'll lead to them wrestling each other at WrestleMania. I'm going to guess as Shane as the face and Miz as the heel.
Let's jump into the upcoming pay-per-view. We went over Raw and SmackDown. So Elimination Chambers this Sunday. You and I both agree, horribly promoted, just too quick, too hastily put together. But let's look at some of the bigger matches. The SmackDown Men's Elimination Chamber. This one's, I think, the main event. It should be. It has the potential to be great, and even though Mustafa Ali's now out, Kofi Kingston can basically serve the same role that he did. Daniel Bryan, the champion, AJ, Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton, Samoa Joe, Kofi Kingston. Just really incredible talent, and SmackDown more than Raw seems to get it right when they have different guys in the main event. They can mix in different people. They can throw a Jeff Hardy in there. They can throw a Mustafa Ali or Kofi Kingston, and you have a little bit more interest. Whereas on Raw, you don't really see those fresh faces. I'm expecting Daniel Bryan to retain. That being said, I wouldn't say it's 100% certainty because I don't know what the title match at WrestleMania is going to be. I don't know that it has to involve Daniel Bryan because right now it doesn't look like anything is set in stone, at least from outsiders' perspectives.
I agree with what you're saying. I think Bryan's going to take it to WrestleMania because he just got a new title belt. So if he just got a new title belt, I don't think 3 weeks later they're going to have him drop it when they just made that belt for him. That's just my logic there.
You know what? That makes sense. But that being said, what do you think is the ultimate WrestleMania match for Daniel Bryan? Because right now I'm speculating it could be John Cena. That being said, it doesn't seem like anything is obvious.
Nothing's obvious. It's.
Is that good?
I think it's good because Well, most years, can we go, here's the matches for WrestleMania, especially already? The fact that we don't know, I like, but maybe at the same time, it's also bad because there's nobody.
All right, Justin, we're having a couple technical issues here.
No one's going to want to.
Okay. I think we got you back now. We had some issues, but we should be good to go from here on out, hopefully. The next match, the Women's Tag Team Championship. Your thoughts on this one? It's supposed to be significant. To me, it doesn't feel real significant. Just because I don't see... you don't have enough real tag teams on the women's side for this to be vital, but I understand that this is all about women's evolution, so on and so forth. I see two possible scenarios. Let me get your opinion.
All right, there's only two choices for winners: Jax and Tamina, and Bayley and Sasha, in my opinion. They're the only two that actually have a legit chance of winning. And my pick was going to be Bayley and Sasha. Just by the way they've been building it, with Sasha getting beat up. And I know that she hasn't been cleared to wrestle. That's why they've been kind of playing that angle. But usually when you see that from the faces, then at the the pay-per-view, they're going to try them. So that's why I'm going with them. But I can easily see Nia and Tamina win.
It's interesting you say that. I said last week, this match is always going to be about Sasha and Bayley. It's either they're going to win or the focus is going to be on them not winning and what it could lead to. I'm glad that you are sort of on the same wavelength as I am, because you picked my pick as the other option, that being Tamina and Nia. I'm picking them not because anyone wants to see that happen, but because that's the most logical group if Sasha and Bayley implode or have some sort of misfire. I think that will happen because I believe we are finally going to get Sasha versus Bayley. I think it's going to happen at WrestleMania. I'm not sure. Maybe they will keep them as tag team champions for months to come. But to me, if you really want to get fans invested, there'll be much bigger reactions to Bayley and Sasha tragically losing this opportunity to win the titles and then having the heels win it, and then what it leads to with Sasha and Bayley blowing up. I think that gets more of a reaction long term.
I don't disagree. That's why I said I see two scenarios. And when I gave you my pick, that was the one match I went back and forth on. I wasn't convinced of either one, to be honest, because I can see both scenarios playing out. But if it leads to Bayley versus Sasha at WrestleMania and their feud from the beginning, I can get behind that.
Let's take a look at another women's match. We mentioned Ruby Riott, Ronda Rousey. We won't talk too much about it because we both know the outcome is going to be Ronda Rousey. That being said, I think they will probably give Ruby a chance to look fairly competitive. They seem like they do that with pay-per-view matches, with the exception of that one Alexa Bliss one. Ronda's going to win, no doubt. You just hope that Ruby has a good showing and, maybe she gets a little push as a result of it. But I don't see any drama. Even with Charlotte teasing that she's going to be there, it's going to be Ronda in some capacity.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much on this because it's an open and, shut case. The Riott squad will interfere a little bit to give Ruby an advantage here and there. But other than that, it's going to be all Ronda. I expect maybe a 5 to 6 minute match. End of story.
Let's take a look at the technically the Intercontinental title match. It's sort of a weird setup. First off, this is a match that's not well promoted. Let's be honest. It's Lio Rush joining Bobby Lashley, 2-on-1 handicap against Finn Balor. Now, my understanding is Finn becomes the champion if he pins either one of them. So you do have the option, okay, well, does maybe Finn beat Lio Rush, whatever. I just think that they're going to keep the championship on Lashley just for the sake that he won it fairly recently. And while it'd be good for Finn to have a title, it almost feels like too much of a step back after just challenging for the Universal title for him the next month to win the IC title. I'm picking Lashley and Lio Rush in this one.
I'm going with Lashley and Lio Rush. Basically for the fact that Lashley just got the title and there's really nothing else for him to do but be the champion. Well, Finn can do maybe a couple other things. I do feel like Finn, is worthy of the title, and I know you said that's a step back, but the Universal title isn't on TV.
Right.
So really, that's the biggest title on Raw. So, and when Seth had it, it was presented as big deal. It was the main event storylines. So, I mean, I think there is a chance Finn pulls out a victory by pinning Lio Rush somehow. But maybe not yet. Maybe he wins that title at WrestleMania, and has a WrestleMania moment. But I don't think he wins it quite yet.
Let's run rapid fire through these last 3 matches. The Miz and Shane McMahon against the Usos. I actually, Justin, had the Usos down, and I changed it because the more I thought about it, I don't see 2 teams imploding on the same night. I think it'll happen with Sasha and Bayley, so I didn't want to pick the Miz and Shane just yet. And then there was news that came out today that sort of changes this one. One of the Usos, Jimmy, along with Naomi, got pulled over. Jimmy got arrested for disorderly conduct or whatever. I think he'll be in the match. I don't think he's going to win the title. If there was any doubt, I think that probably eliminated it.
Everything you said, I agree with. I got nothing else left to say about that.
Strowman and Corbin, a match I did not even know was a match for this event. It just feels like such a waste for these guys. Strowman is my pick just because he's a bigger star than Corbin. I don't understand what they're going to do with Strowman at WrestleMania, but they need to get him in a prominent match, so I think he has to win here and maybe goes on to face Drew McIntyre at Mania. Yeah,
Strowman's going to win easy, but man, is the luster off of Strowman. I mean, a year ago, he was at the top of the hype train. People wanted him to be the champ. Everyone was behind him, and a year later, it's like, they kind of really dropped the ball with him. Now he's facing Corbin, another guy that people do not care about in a match that no one's going to care about.
No DQ match, right? Like that's supposed to. Yeah. Last match is the Cruiserweight Championship. I think as of now it's supposed to be on the main card. That could change, but if it is, good for the Cruiserweights. Buddy Murphy, who's been champion for quite some time against Akira Tozawa. I'll get your pick first, but I think this one's fairly obvious as well.
Yeah, I'm going with Buddy. I mean, I see him definitely carrying it at least to WrestleMania, and there's no reason for him to drop it. He spent money for 205 brand for ride away with it. There's no reason for him to drop it.
Right, I agree. Buddy Murphy, and I do hope at WrestleMania they have someone fresh to challenge and take the title. I think a guy like Ricochet could really do wonders for that show. I don't know if that's in the cards, but that would be a type of person that I could see finally defeating Buddy for the title. So let's look at the graphic that I put together for our predictions. We have identical predictions except for the women's first ever tag team championship match in the Chamber. We agree Daniel Bryan, Ronda Rousey, Bobby Lashley, Lio Rush, The Miz and Shane, Braun Strowman, and Buddy Murphy. The only difference, Justin going with Sasha and Bayley. I'm going with Nia and Tamina. Real quick before we put a bow on this one, Justin, you're wearing your All Elite Wrestling shirt. I know you said last week you thought there was some bigger news, in addition to Kenny Omega signing, which I touched on. The latest in your estimation that is notable with that promotion that's probably about 3 months away from becoming a reality.
Yeah, I guess within the last week. I mean, the only news that kind of came out is they sold out their show, Memorial Day weekend in 4 minutes, which is pretty damn cool, pretty damn good for them. 12,000 sold out in 4 minutes. That's impressive. I guess news that rumored their schedule. They're having that show in May. It looks like maybe a show in June or July, All In 2 in September, and then apparently in October, starting their weekly television. That's what the rumor, layout is. So, I'm looking forward to it.
So these pay-per-views before that, they're just going to use social media basically to promote?
I guess so, yeah, because apparently they're not going to start their TV, until October. They haven't, there's rumors of what the deal is going to be. Apparently it's going to be a legit deal. It's not going to be on Pop Network or something like TNA's on, or, they're going to have legit, and apparently on Tuesday nights. And 2 in October, if you notice, that's when SmackDown's going to move to Friday. They'll go on Tuesdays, so you'll still have wrestling Tuesday nights, and they won't have to compete with the WWE, which is smart. There's no reason to try to go create the wars again like that.
Right, at least not yet.
Especially right off the bat. So, yeah, build your audience. Don't make it a competition. Build your audience on your own. or do it. Watched all their rallies so far on the internet. There's been technical difficulties, but
hey, I can relate. We're having some here tonight. It's the reality of technology, right?
Yes, I'm looking forward to it, and the weak part of it is going to be the women's division. Me and you had that conversation. There's just not enough women out there, I think, to build a very strong division right now. They're too far spread out. I think WWE pretty has the women's market cornered, but give it time.
All right, that's going to do it. Keep in mind that we will be live tweeting throughout Elimination Chamber, as well as typically on Mondays and Tuesdays for Raw and SmackDown. You can always follow us on Twitter at 5StarPodWrestle. There it is. You could check out our YouTube channel, subscribe it, and check out all the videos. Justin, we are nearing the 1-year anniversary. I know you weren't there for the first episode, but hoping to do something special when we get to a year. We'll have balloons and birthday cake and everything. I'm sure that's upcoming in probably about 5 or 6 weeks' time. So we're getting pretty close to a full calendar year here on the podcast. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. For Justin Lowery, the new dad, Sean Meyers signing off. We'll check you out again. You can check us out again next week right here on the 5 Star Podcast of Wrestling.